What's going on, people? Welcome to the YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be watching some Cops UK Bodycam squad. This is something to do with a man armed with weapons attacking a police officer. For those of you guys who don't know, I am a police officer from the UK and I react to police related content and have police related discussions. Without any further ado, let's get straight into this video.
Control room in Nottingham, and an alarming call has just come in.
Police emergency. What's the emergency?
My neighbor tried to break my door with an axe.
Okay, is he still there now?
No, now he's gone.
When did this happen?
A few minutes ago.
Do you know who this person is?
He's my neighbor. I don't know his name. I know he's a junkie.
Response cops Lewis Marshall and Lee Barlow are on duty, so the job is passed to them.
Just had a call. A male banging on the door with an axe.
You've got a neighbour that's done something bizarre, so you've got to question where he's at.
So they just said 999 calls came in, neighbour banging on the door with an axe or something like that. Not as uncommon as you might believe, especially, well, I think the guy mentioned that he might be a junkie or a drug addict. People do crazy stuff. People who are high, people who are upset, people who are drunk, they do crazy stuff all the time. This is not a call which would make my eyebrows raised. Yeah, don't be surprised. The only thing that I would look at is when you look at calls being legitimate, we treat every call with a level of seriousness based on just what we're told over the phone. We do believe you guys a lot. However, other things that you consider are if someone's walking around with an axe for a prolonged period of time, you might get multiple phone calls on that. That's something which would make you think, actually, you know what? Straight from the bat, I'm gonna ask for more units, or straight away I'm gonna be considering maybe coming straight out the car with my taser, because if there's 3 phone calls saying that there's someone there with an axe, there's someone there with an axe with enough time for 3 people to see it, or making enough noise for 3 people to see it. That tells me it's legitimately happening and it's not just a prank call or someone exaggerating. This is really going on. Let's get more units there now. Potentially let's get firearms officers there now. Let's make sure there's enough taser units there. And I might be hopping out the car with my taser already out, because I'm not trying to get my head chopped off my shoulders.
You know, what sort of mentality he's got.
As they approach the address, Lee quickly spots the property that's been attacked.
Yes, there is a big hole in the door.
As soon as we pulled up and I saw the attacked door, I just thought, that's an axe.
Try to come inside of the house.
Yes, they just showed a picture of the door. There is a hole in the door, and there's a lot of choppy marks, as if someone's been chopping it with an axe. The guy who called it in, he was surprisingly well put together, and he explained himself surprisingly well, judging that someone had just been chopping his door down with an axe.
He has a sword and an axe inside of his hand and tried to break the door.
Did you see him do it?
No. My mother, she was inside. She was calling me. I was outside. He's living right here next to me. It's not first time when it's happening. One time, the door was...
With your mum and dad?
Yeah, with my sister as well.
Do you have any idea why he's done it?
I don't know, sir. He's mental. I know he's using
The neighbour that attacked the door has gone back inside his own house next door.
The whole family were visibly shaking. They were very scared.
Right, so they've shown the door again. They just said that the neighbour whose door's been attacked, she's still inside with family members. He's outside and his mum's calling him or something like that. What I'll be thinking at this time is I'll be over my radio saying, okay, let's get more units. I would probably, depending on what's going on, I would try and judge, is this person going to try and run off or not? But I'll be directing more units towards me, potentially to go around the back of the property. I probably would want not just one taser unit going through the front. I've got my taser. If my colleague didn't have his taser, I'll call for more officers so we could go through the house properly. Because again, I don't want my face chopped off. But yeah, I'll try and secure the house. I'll try and make sure that he can't leave. I'd get officers around the back. And if he's likely to run, or depending on who it is, I would actually ask for consideration of dogs and push him further if he started playing silly buggers, a helicopter. But we'll see what happens.
Obviously, quite traumatised by what had just happened.
Confronting the neighbour, who could be armed with a sword and an axe, has given the cops a difficult decision to make. Go in now or wait for backup.
Public safety is paramount, and if he's prepared to do that, how is he still in the property? And you think, is he going to come out again in the very near future and do something similar?
What they're saying.
Lee calls in to see if there are any taser-armed cops nearby.
We're about to knock on, just wondering if we've got a taser resource available. Lewis and I were both in agreement.
So as I said, he's called in to see if there are any taser-armed police officers nearby. It's a good decision. You need to. It's called the national decision-making model. You need to gather information and intelligence. You need to. You need to look at the information that you have at the time and make decisions based on that. You need to consider your options and contingencies. All the police officers out there are waiting for me to recite the whole thing. I cannot remember it. Take action and review, I think, is the last one. But either way, you need to gather this information. You need to decide what's the next best course of action. Okay? You need to consider the powers what you do have. So under Section 17 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, they can boot open that door where this offender is if they believe that an offender is there who is unlawfully at large for an indictable offence. They can kick that door up and they can go straight in there, so they know their powers are in place. But they still need to be careful in risk assessing the situation. So calling for more taser units, number one, that's great. If they open that door and they deploy taser and it doesn't work, withdraw. Keep your distance, potentially get some firearms officers there who have got baton rounds and real firearms and who are probably more used to and more skilled with using taser to turn up to the scene to try and whack this guy down. And also, if they do end up having to smack him down or even shoot him, they can do some first aid on him because they're trained to the same level, I believe, as paramedics.
We need to, get this guy out the address, make sure he's got no weapons, and make sure there's no one else in there, that need our help.
But with no taser officers immediately available, Lewis prepares to use his CS gas, a form of tear gas that stings the eyes.
From my point of view, we sort of stood outside his house. He might know we're outside, he probably does know we're outside his house, and I wanted to get him out then, sort of at that moment.
Steve, get off the radio, mate, 1 sec.
No reports.
Please, your hands back and see him.
He opened the door, but...
So, just at the moment, and then there's been a knock at the door, he's considering, do I go in or do we wait? You can tell they've got two different approaches. You've got the older lad there, potentially a slightly more experienced, who's thinking, let's get more officers here. He's probably thinking about his kids at home. You've got the younger lad who's thinking, hey, I'm strong enough, I'm fit enough, I'm ready for a scrap. I'm going to lay the old left-right when he comes through that door and put some bees on his eyes. I'll spray him out and I'll sort it out my way. It's the kind of conversation that you need to have, and you need to have those conversations very, very quickly. A lot of the time, we have these conversations on the way to the job where we're going to deal with a person with a machete. We'll be like, okay, if we get there and he's actually got a machete, I'll do this, I'll go this way, you go that way. Worst comes to worst, we'll get back in the car and we'll put it in reverse. That's the conversations that we have to have. There's two things they could consider. They can consider surround the house, make sure he doesn't escape, and do what's called a call out. So surround the house, knock the door, wait for him to come to the door, keep your distance and say, come outside now, I want you to come out, and I want you to show me your hands to show that you've got no weapons on you. Armed response officers do this all the time, but if you're a normal constable, you can use the same technique, but just be aware of your distance. They tried to wait for other officers, and I'm sure if they waited long enough, some other officers will be available, but for some reason, this younger officer has assessed it and thought, know what? Maybe he's thinking, we don't know who else is inside the house who may be in danger. I want to go in there and deal with it right now.
Wouldn't fully present himself out of it, I noticed immediately.
Your hands back and see him. Come out the door, come out the door, come out the door. Come out the door. Right, keep your hands back and see him.
Lewis uses his CS gas, but the man is too quick.
And then he's got a runner.
Right, so he's came out that door. When he opened the door, the officers pulled him out. Great idea. If he's not in the right mind, he's either going to slam the door and run off. They don't have the back of the house secured, so he could run off and disappear anywhere else and not be seen again. We're not doing that with the police. We arrest people. He could pull inside the door, go and grab his weapon and start chopping heads. We don't want to die and we don't enjoy getting hurt, so that's not an option. If he starts going back in, he gets yanked out. He did the right thing there. He had his pepper spray on hand so he can give him a few liquid bees if he was being silly. He's came at the house, threw a few wild punches and tried to do a runner, which tells me two things. This individual was never going to comply even if they spoke to him nicey. Because even hardened criminals, when they see the police, they don't think, you know what, when I'm about to be arrested, I'm going to make it worse by swinging my arms and punching. A lot of them don't do that. So for this person to do that, I'm thinking he's in a position where he was not going to comply. And he starts running off. that brief glimpse of the subject who's running away, compared to the brief glimpse of the officer with the beard, tells me that this young officer may just have the physical edge on him in the end.
As he catches up with the runner, Lewis sprays the CS gas in his face. This time, the CS gas has hit the target, and the Axeman has been forced to stop. But he's not the only one with streaming eyes.
I got a full face of it.
The man's arrested and restrained by other officers while Lee and Lewis search his house. Inside, using their body cameras to record evidence of anything they find.
So the guy's like, oh, I just got a full face of it. Yeah, that's pepper spray, that's parva for you. If you're anywhere in the vicinity, especially if someone's running and the wind's blowing, you can get it, and that can be it for you. It's not like a fog. I've been told that old pepper sprays and old variants of irritant sprays that we've used in the past used to be like a fog, and it would just like kind of take over a whole area. This one, it's more like a strong jet of water. It's a lot more direct, but still, if you're in the vicinity, it's going to make you start coughing. You can taste it, you can smell it, it makes you start wiping your nose. And there's load, it can be splashback. It can bounce off the back of this bald dude's head and go in your face. So, you know, something to be aware of, I suppose.
They quickly come across a small arsenal of deadly-looking weapons.
In the front room, there's a machete and another axe. And then in the window, there's an ornamental samurai type sword, capable of causing lethal harm.
And there's something else in the hallway.
We have confirmed just inside the door as well, there's appears to be a hand axe, which is consistent with the damage caused to the neighbour address.
And hand axe in the house.
Yeah, just on the inside of the front door.
My thoughts were, he's been...
So he just said that he found a hand axe consistent with the damage to the neighbour's address. After someone's been arrested, according to the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, they can be searched. They personally will be searched for any items that can be used to aid in their escape, to hurt someone else, any illegal items. That can be seized and taken from them, or any evidence relating to the offence, but also any areas where they currently are. So that person ran down the street, everywhere where he was standing, his clothes, and all around the area, in that area where he had access to at that time, could be searched. Let's say that they were convinced that he had made some slashes with a little knife and it could be in that area. They have the legal right, even if it's in someone else's garden, and they say, you know what, coppers, I don't want you in my garden. No, according to PACE, we have the legal right to be searching this area, so we are going to be searching your garden. We'll be searching you, being allowed to do that. But obviously, they're also allowed to search his home because he's just fled from there. He's just left there. And also, regardless of that, they're allowed to do that because there may be evidence that there in relation to the offence. That may go under Section 18 of PACE, which will be searching premises after someone's been arrested.
Seem to have some weapons that if he comes to the door, we need him out fast. So, with the information we've been armed with, I think it feels appropriate to try and pull him out. You know, reasonable force, and then as soon as he's got out, he started to swing. At which point I backed off and used my gas.
You open our car.
Yeah.
Quite a large hand axe, a very large machete, and then some kind of decorating tool, I suppose. All three. I mean, this one, you can still see the white plastic on the end of the axe. And that's obviously come from the damage that he's caused to the next door. But very nasty tools.
But the menacing weapons aren't the only things they find. In the kitchen of the man's house, another discovery is made that could shed some light on his behaviour.
Looks like it's some kind of amphetamine, been kept in the freezer. He's obviously got a set of digital scales here where he's been cutting it up.
So they just said in the kitchen, another discovery has been made which will shed some light on his behaviour, and we have a scale and a baggie of white powder. There's another larger bag of white powder behind that. I'll be shocked if that's all cocaine, but certainly there's going to be a certain amount of coke involved. When people are high on cocaine, they have a certain amount of reckless abandon, and they'll use a remarkable amount of force and strength, and they won't respond properly to pain, which is something to consider. He did the right thing. He backed off and he sprayed. He wouldn't be criticised if, when he was being punched, he decided to throw some punches back. This person's high on cocaine. He's not in the right mindset. The officers run after him, they chase him down, they grab him, and he throws more punches. So our young man there and the other dude think, we can have him. We're not going to play this game all day. They throw some punches back. They use reasonable force, anticipating that they're being assaulted, to apprehend someone unlawfully at large. They're trying to apprehend an offender. So they use force back. They punch him, they throw knees him. He's not going to respond as a normal person would do to those strikes. So he'll take punch after punch after punch. And he'll be and it will look like he's fine. Eventually they win, they drag him into custody. When he gets there, he's laying there and he becomes unresponsive inside his cell. And he dies. He dies of a bleed in the brain or something like that. The officers look like corrupt scumbags who've just murdered someone, and then they've dragged him to a police cell just to die. When it's not, that's not what's really happened. And the cases like this happen all around the world. When people are high on cocaine, they don't react as a normal person would do to pain. They don't feel it when I got punched then, my brain wobbled and it made me feel weird. Or I blacked out a bit then. My arm, I feel like my arm's broken. They don't react normally. They can keep fighting and fighting and fighting. And you'll think this person's just a nasty prick and they're not responding to the pain. And it can end up with you being in a lot of trouble. So consider that. So if you are striking someone and you're a police officer or a security guard, use that reasonable force. Use that reasonable force. Use that reasonable force. After you've tried that 2 or 3 times, consider doing something else, man. Same with pepper spray. I've used pepper spray. That hasn't worked. I'm going to have to do something else. Don't keep just doing the same thing, because you're going to end up beating someone to death or running out of spray or tasering someone to death. Do a different tactic. You have to try something new. But let's get back into it.
And I'll be using that as some kind of cutting compound. So, yeah, suspected to be drugs.
We go again with the address.
Doesn't appear to be intoxicated, so yeah, it may well be under the influence of some other substance, which is...
So to pause it again, he said that larger bag was some type of cutting compound. So a lot of the people in the area I work, they call it magic or madge. And effectively what that is when it comes to cocaine, they want to stretch it. So they call it stretching that pack. They want to stretch the drugs. So they'll get in a certain amount of drugs, and they'll get in a certain amount of madge or magic, and they'll mix it together. They'll cut it together so it's more. So if you've got 100 grams of cocaine and you add in 10 grams or 5 grams of this cutting compound or magic or whatever you want to do to stretch it up, now you've got 110 or 105 grams. So it just makes more of it effectively without reducing the quality in a major way or making it too noticeable for the potential consumer, if that makes sense.
Why he's done what he's done to his neighbour's house and why he's reacted to us the way he has when we've knocked on the door. So we'll seize that. We'll get it field tested, and that'll tell us exactly what it's going to be.
The neighbour whose door was smashed is understandably worried about living there.
This guy's coming back, sir?
Well, he will be released at some point, yeah. Obviously, he's your next door neighbour. Chances are he'll be given conditions where he's not allowed to have any contact with you guys. If he sees you on the street, he's not allowed to speak to you, and he should really be crossing the street. So you've not had any previous fallouts with him or anything?
Just one time I was sitting inside of the kitchen, and I saw him with the sword and the knife. Like that, just like that, straight away. And after like 1 minute, he was like going back down.
You didn't tell us about it?
No, because
right.
I'm scared, she's...
Yeah.
We don't want...
You don't want trouble or anything?
Yeah,
okay.
This time, what can I do, sir? What can I do?
Well, yeah, you've done the right thing this time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, no problem.
So there you've got potentially what may have been another offence depending on the circumstances. He's looked at this man who's inside his house and he's seen him with a sword and a knife. If he's just seen him with a sword and a knife, he's allowed to have that inside his house. However, if he's making gestures, if he's getting a knife and doing this with it, that could constitute a public order offence. And if he's moving towards the window at speed, causing the neighbour to think, oh, this guy's about to kill me, that could be common assault. So as a police officer, you'll be taking a statement from him and his family members about what's happened today, because right now you've got a criminal damage. You've got possession of offensive weapon in a public place. You've got assaulting a police officer. You've got a resisting arrest, which I doubt that they're not going to arrest him for resisting arrest, but they'll that is another offence which is committed. And in the past, you've got that public order offence potentially. It all just adds up. So when it gets put before a judge, they don't think, oh, it's a one-off. They know that they think, no, this is a pattern of behaviour to harass these people, and this guy is a menace to that community, and he's a danger wherever they put him. It gives the correct context, because he's going to turn around and say, I had some drugs and I never act like this. This is the first time. We can turn around and say, no, mate, you do this on a regular basis, or at least you've done it before.
He's obviously come out wanting to fight, and now can go to the cell and just sleep off whatever is affecting his behaviour at the minute.
The cops have got another problem. The man's small dog, which got caught up in the chase. Arrangements are made to make sure it's looked after.
It's got water, it's got food.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a tiny thing, it doesn't need much, does it?
It's got a bit of excitement to it there, but
The evidence Lee and Lewis have found in the house will go towards securing a conviction.
I think at the end of the day, there's a family next door absolutely terrified of him. They've had the door smashed to pieces with his weapons, and now we've locked him up, and you know they can.
why have you got all these sort of things in your house? If he's prepared to go out and use them on his next door neighbour's door, where does that stop?
The following day, more harrowing details came to light when Lee took a statement from a teenage girl at the address.
Turned out the sword he'd actually pierced.
But yeah, he's just asked, why would he have all those weapons inside his house? I don't know. He's allowed to. He's allowed to have weapons like that. He's allowed to have axes and all that stuff around his house. However, when it comes to him protecting his house, it puts him in a sticky situation, especially someone who's a hothead like he is. If someone burgled your house being a normal person, what you'd probably do is you'd use reasonable force to defend yourself, or potentially to defend your property, or potentially to do, if you're a hero, to do a citizen's arrest on the offender. With him, he's going to be in a sticky situation when the burglar comes in armed with nothing, or armed with a flashlight, or potentially armed with a screwdriver for opening a door. He turns a corner, he sees the burglar sees him, and his instinct is to reach behind him and pick up the axe and chop this man in the face. The burglar, who's got a little screwdriver in his hand, or who's got nothing in his hand, could get their face sliced open and die. Potentially, he may get away with that because he might be thinking, oh, I've seen a screwdriver, I didn't know what was going on, so it was my instinct. But a hothead like him, he may not stop there. He may chop away, he may continue the attack, he may chase the person down and put himself in a situation where a jury will look at it and say, this was not reasonable force. You should have stopped after the first swing, but you didn't control yourself, and now you're going to prison for murder. So all those people who keep weapons in their house, you guys need to know the law, and also know what's legal for you to do and know your limits. And number one thing is contact the police if you can. Come on, guys, we're not that useless.
Through the door and like thrust it through the entire door up to the hilt, and the 14-year-old girl was walking towards the door when the blade came straight through, and she's had to literally jump back to avoid being run through with it.
During the scuffle with the axeman, as well as getting a face full of CS gas, Lee also got a fist in the face.
It's the only time I've been punched in the face in 14 years. So I got punched by an offender and then CS by my colleague.
The axeman pleaded guilty to criminal damage, possession of an offensive weapon in a public place, and assaulting a police officer.
He said it's the only time he's been punched in the face in 14 years. I've been kneed, I've been spat at, I've been attempted, I've been slapped. I haven't been punched yet, which is good. Maybe it's because of all my sick head movement, but probably just because I'm quite tall and people can't reach me yet. I'm sure my day will come.
He was sentenced to a hospital order without time limit. The sword was seized, and he was also convicted of being in possession of amphetamines.
So that's interesting. He was given a hospital order, which means that he potentially had a mental health assessment and they realised this person is not in the right place mentally. So for a lot of people out there, this will seem like he got away with it, but it's he's been given this hospital order without time limit. So if he is genuinely medically, mentally deranged and he does need further help, he'll get that help. But if he's acting, he could end up spending longer than he would have if he just went to prison inside this mental facility, where actually he's still been restricted in many of the same ways that he would be inside prison. So if he genuinely needs the help, this will be really good help for him. But if he's making it up, you might as well just cough it and say, you know what, mate, yeah, it's my fault. I did it because I don't want to be spending an indefinite amount of time in a facility or a hospital. Tell me what you guys think. Tell me if you guys enjoyed it. Tell me what you guys would have done in the same situation. Would you have called him out? Would you have surrounded the house? Would you have got the dogs in? Would you have climbed onto the roof and abseiled through a window like you're in the SAS? Tell me what you guys would have done. Tell me what you guys want me to react to next. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.